Hi everyone, my name is Christopher Graffio. I'm one of the PGY7s here at Mayo Clinic in Rochester, and I'm going to talk to you for a couple of minutes about why I think this is the best neurosurgery program in the world and why you should consider training here with us. I'm originally from Brooklyn, New York, and I went to medical school at NYU, so I'm particularly hopeful that I can convince those of you who won't have a chance to come out here and visit Rochester for yourselves that this is an incredible place to live and an incredible place to train, and that even someone from the big city like me can become a real convert to why this is honestly maybe the best place you could hope to spend 7 years of your life while you train to become an outstanding neurosurgeon. So with that in mind, there's really two questions I'm hoping I can speak to, and sort of a multi-part answer for each. The first is why Mayo as a training program, and the second is why Rochester is a great place to live. So in terms of why Mayo, when I talk to resident applicants, I tend to break this down into sort of four big categories of things that I think are incredible about the training program here. So the first is the case volume and complexity. So there's only a handful of programs in the country that do the number of operations that we do at the level of sophistication that we do. And Mayo's a special place. We have a really big catchment area. We get referrals from not just all over the country, but all over the world. And a very large fraction of the cases that are done here are, on the higher end of the difficulty spectrum or the complexity. And that's not to say that we don't get a really diverse representation of bread and butter neurosurgery and trauma and all the other things that you need to learn to become a resident. That's true here just like it is everywhere else, but the fraction of cases that are going to push you to be better and to develop yourself technically and to develop your knowledge base is really it's quite large, and I think that makes up a critical part of the experience. Hand in hand with having a lot of cases and a lot of cases that are challenging, our resident autonomy in the operating room is extremely high here. So it's a bottom heavy program. As an intern, I think I did probably about 260 cases, mostly as a second assist, mostly as a second assist, some as a first assist to a chief or to a staff in a more minor case. But by the end of my third year, I'd completed all of my ACGME case numbers in terms of the number of cases that you have to be a lead surgeon or a senior surgeon in, and by virtue of how the OR is set up and our teams, the mentorship model, the surgical assistants, everything else that makes this place really unique and interesting, it's very rare for residents to be double scrubbed once you're out of the intern year, and even in the intern year you're oftentimes just with a chief or maybe just with a senior resident who's kind of taking you through how to learn the basics of doing a craniotomy or putting spine instrumentation in, or something that no one would expect you to know how to do on your own out of the gate. So by the time most of our residents get to the end of their fourth year and are transitioning into chief time, career development time, etc., pretty much everyone can get through all of the basic cases, 80% of what's neurosurgery, more or less on their own. You spend your first 2 years learning sort of how to do a craniotomy, how to do a spine case, etc., and then another 2 years in the sort of core mentorship rotations with the staff, learning how to really complete the critical portions of cases and develop a more refined sense for how to operate and how to get through tougher, more complicated operations, which culminates in the chief here. And I'll come back to that in a second, but I'm kind of going through this in a certain sequence. And then after you're done with the fourth year, you then have 3 years. One of them is a chief year, 2 of them are career development years. And the third thing that I think is really incredible about this training program is that our department is very innovative in terms of how they support a lot of different training pathways and individual needs. So just in my class and the class ahead of me and the class behind us, those 9 residents, I think there's 9 different things people did with those 2+ years of extra time. So Ben Heim's got a PhD. Avital Perry did 1 year doing an MPH on disaster medicine in Israel and 1 year doing an infolded skull base fellowship. Ross Puffer did a year of trauma research split between Rochester and UPMC and 1 year of an infolded peripheral nerve fellowship. I did a master's in biostatistics during my first year. Then I was a chief as a 6, and now I'm an infolded skull base fellow this year. Kendall Snyder did a research year here in Rochester, and then she's doing the spine fellowship, infolded, and Desmond Brown did the infolded neuro-oncology fellowship, followed by a lab year, and is now chief as a 7. And then the year behind me, Lorenzo Ronaldo did an infolded endovascular year and is going to be the skull base fellow infolded next year. Brandon McCutcheon is spending his second of 2 years at Stanford getting a master's degree in innovation. And Chris Marcelino is in the second of 2 years doing critical care enfolded fellowship, which is split between neurocritical care services and medical SICU, MICU, et cetera, kind of terrain, anesthesia. So that's just, it's a lot of diversity. And the specifics of those plans don't matter a ton. The bottom line is that the department is really good about trying to help individual residents identify what do you need to advance your career, to build your skill, to build your expertise. I'm passionate about evidence-based medicine. I like writing and editing. I'd like to work for one of the journals someday. And so, spending all of this time working on more high-level sort of statistics and epidemiology was very helpful to my career. The department helped me find a way to really, develop those skills, to find good mentors with Dr. Pollock and people in the stats groups, Kurt Storley and folks like that. They took care of the tuition, obviously, for the program and made sure that I had enough time and resources to get an entire master's degree done in a year, which is typically a 2-year program. But obviously, if you're going to approach it working like a neurosurgeon, then that's something you can get done in a little bit less time than might otherwise be required. And so then the fourth thing that I think makes this program unique and amazing is the chief year. And if you got rid of everything else that was good about this place and you only had the chief year, I still think it'd be the best training program in the world. And so basically, most people do the chief year either as a 7 at the very end of training or as a 6 interposed between a research year and then an infolded clinical fellowship year, either skull base or neuro-onc or peripheral nerve. There's a variety of different ways that could be done depending on you and your cohort and how things worked out. But anyway, during your chief year, you're essentially a junior staff. So you have your own clinic where you show up every day and you see patients who are there to see you as their neurosurgeon. And obviously everything is supervised and you staff your cases with, individual staff. But you have your own block time in the OR, 7:03, it's home away from home. And so there's usually 3 chiefs at a time. So every third day, you have a clinic day, and you have an elective day in the OR, and then you have a 24-hour period where you're admitting, you're on trauma call, not necessarily overnight every time, but a decent fraction of them, and you pick up a lot of the elective cases either from the ER or from the neurology services at that point, so you get a lot of volume. And you're really, at that point, you're well enough trained technically and in your fund of knowledge that you should be able to be almost completely independent, and you are running your important decisions by someone. And as the year goes on, the fraction of decisions that you should need to run by someone obviously is going to shrink to a degree. So you've always got a safety net there, and patient safety is something we prioritize in a very serious way. But we also bake into the training model an opportunity to, at the end of your training, really push yourself. And I think that we get, as trainees, the experience that a lot of people at other centers don't really get until they're in their first year in practice, and they don't have the net, and they don't have someone that they can say, hey, I saw this really tough case in clinic the other day. I'm on the fence about, do I fuse or not, or do we do 2 levels or 3 levels? Or I want to take this tumor out. I think a retrosig will get me there, but would you mind looking at this with me? Maybe we should do a petrosectomy instead. And to have a year where you are both forced to go through that decision making on your own and still have a lot of resources available in terms of knowledgeable world expert staff who can help you improve your decision making and improve your clinical acumen is incredibly useful. And during the chief year, I think I learned probably more in that 1 year than I did in the 5 years leading up to it. And I think I advanced more, as a surgeon in that 1 year than I did in the 5 years leading up to it. And I say that as someone who feels as though I came into my chief year relatively advanced and quite competent and able to do, the vast majority of bread and butter neurosurgery on my own, like I said a couple minutes ago. So I don't have enough good things to say about the chief year. I don't have enough good things to say about the training here. Overall, like I said, I think that we do more cases and more complex cases than pretty much anywhere else. We operate with a ton of autonomy in the OR. We have a very innovative and resident-oriented department that is exceptional in terms of trying to put our needs at the forefront of what the department is doing and how we're planning our training and planning our schedules and allocating resources. And then our training culminates in this year that really turns you into a real surgeon. And the chief year here, it's a unique experience. It's incredible. I can't say enough good things about it again. And I hope that you will very seriously consider training here. So after going on for way too long about why Mayo, I'll try to keep it a little shorter in terms of why Rochester. I think this is an incredible place to live. I haven't always felt that way, but I did at least predict that I might feel this way someday when I decided to come out here, and so hopefully that'll be a hopeful message to anyone who's thinking about training here and worried about living in Rochester. So, the obvious things that are great about this place are easy to enumerate. It's an affordable town. Almost everyone who's a resident here is able to own a house or to rent somewhere very nice and very close to the hospital. I want to say my mortgage payment's probably about a third of what I peaked at in terms of rent in New York City, if that gives you a ballpark idea of what the real estate situation is like. It's very favorable. It's kind of the bottom line. It's a super convenient town. Like, there's almost nothing in Rochester that's more than about a 5-minute drive from anything else in Rochester. And it turns out when you need to go into the hospital at 2 a.m, it's awfully nice that, you've got about 5 minutes from any house or other place you could be to get to the hospital. And you work a lot as a neurosurgery resident. We work long hours and we work a lot of nights and weekends, and I, for one, love that I don't spend any time, sitting in a car commuting that I don't have to. And that's time that's with family, or that's time that's doing research, or it's time that's exercising, or it's time that's sleeping that, I don't have to sit on the bus or, schlep through traffic or whatever else. So the convenience it's obvious, but it can't be understated in terms of how much that has the ability to positively impact your quality of life. It's a very safe place. It's a very family-friendly place. That's not to say that, lots of single people have come here and had a great time and met partners and, enjoyed access to both the cultural life here in Rochester and in Minneapolis. But it is, I think we all like that this is it's an easy, safe, friendly place to live and potentially raise a family if that's where you are with your life at this point. I think the weather's beautiful. I'm a little bit of a cold weather enthusiast, so maybe I'm the exception there, but I'll also say, to paraphrase one of my former co-residents, Ross Puffer, it is 70 and fluorescent in the OR anywhere, and if you're too concerned about the weather, then you're probably not going to be operating enough. So that's an easy thing to hate about Rochester, but I'm on the pro-cold side of things, so I guess I won't say too much more about that. They want us to talk about our favorite things in Rochester and what, there's a lot of sort of easy off-the-cuff things, like there's a really great bike trail network here. You can get pretty much anywhere you want without having to cross more than one or two big streets safely and quickly, and they're very well maintained. There's a really nice rock gym that I spend a lot of time at with my kid. It's a fun place, really friendly, nice local folks own it and operate it, and it's very well maintained. But what I think is the neatest about Rochester is that we are here sort of at the dawn of what I think is going to be a very big cultural moment for this town. And I'm sure someone in one of these videos will talk about the whole DMC, Destination Medical Center thing. But what that boils down to is there's been, certainly over the 6 years I've been here, a lot of energy and development and money and other things going into building infrastructure in the town, and it feels like this is a time when a lot of people want to make this a great place to live. And, within a very short walk of my house, so half a mile, let's say, since I've moved here, Forager Brewing has opened, which is an incredible restaurant, really good brewery. Little Thistle Brewery, which is another kind of offbeat place, really good beer, very affordable, neat people run it. Old Abe's Coffee House, which is by far the best coffee available in Rochester, probably the best cold brew I've had anywhere. And the Grey Duck Theater, which is an art house cinema that a guy who looks oddly like me named Andy runs, and they have a really good espresso bar there, and they show movies that I 6 years ago would have said have no business ever being shown in Rochester, but they're doing great business, and they've got a lot of people who hang out there, and it's a neat spot, and it's nice to be able to get that little dose of culture when you want it. And I guess if all of that's not enough to convince you, we're just about an hour away from Minneapolis, which is an amazing city with an amazing airport, and the Rochester airport's also probably the easiest point of entry into the TSA system you'll ever come across. So it's a great place to live, but it's also a great place to get out of if you want to go to a bigger city or travel somewhere else. And the barriers to getting, elsewhere in the world from here are pretty low. So, bottom line, I think Rochester rocks. I think you should live here. I think everyone should want to live here. It's an awesome place. But I hope you'll take it seriously, and I hope you won't let preconceived notions about what Rochester is and can be, keep you from taking this seriously as a possible place to train. So I've covered a lot and talked a lot more than I probably should have. I think that about wraps it up. Like I've said a bunch of times, I think that this is the best training program in the world. I think it's in a great town to live in. I think that it's been an absolute honor and a privilege to be here for the past 6 years. I look forward to at least meeting you all digitally and perhaps meeting some of you in person down the road. If you have other questions, I'm happy to answer them. You can email me at graphio.christopher@mayo.edu. You can hit me up on Twitter at graphio, or my PGY5 colleagues, in particular Lucas Karlstrom at Lucas_Karlstrom, are also fielding questions, and he's active on Twitter and Instagram as well. So, reach out to us, hit us up with questions, or go through the website mayoneurosurgery.org, and we'd love to do anything we can to educate you about the program and about life in Rochester and about how to find the place that's best fit for you in neurosurgery. And best of luck out there. It's a kind of a crazy year, and hold fast. You're gonna get to be a neurosurgeon one way or the other. Good luck. Thanks.